It's tier list time again, and today we're taking a look at the changes coming in patch 13.9 and how they affect the meta. Not the biggest patch in the world, but the much anticipated Neeko rework is here, plus buffs and changes to some of the more underwhelming champions. So let's start off in the top lane, and in the god tier we have Ornn and Poppy. In the S tier we have Singed, Kled, Rengar, Akshan, Riven, Zac, Maokai, Olaf, Jax and Shen. Small nerfs to Sion this week bring him down from S to A. Ornn is just going full beast mode right now, with tanks being so good and him being the best of the best. Ornn offers so much throughout games, from his solid laning, his unique passive, his surprising damage and his ability to set up ganks super easily. Then you go into the rest of the game with the longest range initiation in the game, a truckload of crowd control and disruption, and he can sponge a ridiculous amount of damage in fights too. Ornn is fairly easy to pick up and learn, but he has a super high skill ceiling too, with loads of different ways to combo your abilities together to make you even more hard to beat. So if you aren't playing Ornn already, you should be. If you want to see the best builds and runes for Ornn or any other champion, then check out our desktop app where you can see the most popular, the highest performing, or even the builds from your favourite pro players, and import them straight into your game in Champion Select. Aatrox is getting some buffs, guys, and yes, it's always scary when this happens, but let's be honest, he's really not been doing too great recently. Apart from the odd Aatrox one trick that gets a bit too fed too early, he really hasn't been having the best season. So this patch Riot are buffing his passive damage health ratio and his ultimate's bonus movement speed, and let's see how much impact these changes actually make. Kayle's changes this patch are pretty damn huge, and along with Neeko, they're definitely the biggest adjustments this week. Her ease on hit AP ratio is going down slightly, but the passive wave damage is going up. However, the changes to her ultimate are really what's exciting. The cast time is getting reduced from 1.5 seconds down to 0.5. The AoE delay is going up from 1.5 to 2.5 seconds, and the invulnerability duration is changing from 2 to 3 to 2.5 flat. The AoE radius is also going up significantly and increasing with each rank, and the general damage is going down a bit. Kayle also no longer lowers her own range when she ults herself. Overall, this is a lot of changes to mainly one ability. She's going to be a bit harder to deal with, as now she can pop out and keep slapping without too much interruption. The cast time adjustment is massive, and the fact that the invulnerability duration is 2.5 seconds even at rank 1, she's going to feel a little bit more difficult to punish in the early game. Let's be honest, Kayle is all about scaling and rushing to 16 as soon as possible. And when she does get there with these smooth changes to her ultimate, she might be a bit of a disaster to beat. For now, we've popped her in the A tier, and let's see how she looks next week. Moving on to the jungle now, and in the S tier we have Fiddlesticks, Jarvan, Kha'Zix, Gragas, Udyr, Evelynn, Hecarim, Nocturne and Echo. Yes, Hecarim rejoins the S tier this week after earning it over recent weeks. He's clearing the jungle quickly, he's ganking lanes at the speed of light, and he's one-shotting entire teams with a few items just by pressing Q a few times. Hecarim has always been a terrifying snowballing machine in the jungle, and when he's strong, the game is a pretty scary place. His ban rate reflects just how much people don't enjoy playing against him, so if you are a pony main, don't stop playing him anytime soon, except maybe in my games, please? Volibear is getting some buffs this week to his W damage health ratio percentage and his W heal ratio too. Volibear has just been really out of the pool for such a long time now, and we really haven't seen him since his huge period of domination in the jungle in Season 12. When he's strong, he is very strong, with his reliable CC and super solid ganks and ability to dive turrets like they don't even exist. I'm sure there's plenty of you out there that really want Volibear to be more viable again, so let's see if these changes are a step in the right direction. Amumu is getting some buffs this week too, with his W's percentage health damage going up. Amumu has also been a bit quiet recently, and he really does yo-yo between being permanently played and a little bit invisible. He'll always be consistent at what he does best though, with his super reliable engage and ability to win games with just one good ultimate. It's just the rest of his game that's been lacking a little bit recently, so let's see if these changes can help him out. Trundle was overnerfed quite some time ago now, and we haven't seen him anywhere near as much as we have in the past. His viability in recent seasons seems to come down to the strength of his W, and when he's good, oh boy does he win a ton of games. This week his base attack speed is going up, and so is his mana pool, which could actually be pretty damn huge because his base mana is going up from 281 to a whopping 340. More mana means more Ws and more bites, which means he might make a bit of a comeback. Bel'Veth's also receiving some small changes, buffing her Q modified monster damage and nerfing her attack damage growth. She is a great solo queue champion to go for and has been all season so far. She's got a solid jungle clear, relatively strong ganks, and a fantastic scaling too. If you get fed in the early game, you can be such a terror to deal with. Bel'Veth's mobility, consistent damage output, and survivability with her E make her a solid pick to carry games with. So if you haven't already been playing her, give her a go. Moving into the mid lane now, and in the god tier we have Akshan, and in the S tier we have Annie, Aurelion Sol, Anivia, Cassiopeia, Vladimir, Fizz, Pantheon, Talon, and Ahri. Yes, Fizz is going to move up to the S tier this week with the buffs coming into Lich Bane. The item is receiving a juicy plus 10 AP this patch, and for an item made for picks like Fizz, it could make him a little bit bonkers. Fizz has already been slowly but surely climbing the mid lane tier list, and now it feels like the perfect time for him to shine in the S tier. He snowballs ridiculously quickly, he can be impossible to deal with once he gets fed, and he can tower dive you on repeat in the mid lane with his playful trickster dealing tons of damage but also chopping tower aggro. His roams, his ganks, his assassinations, and crazy mobility all make him a great choice to go for. The Neeko changes are finally here too, and they look incredibly exciting. The first thing you need to watch out for is that Neeko can now turn into all sorts of random things like control wards, traps, minions, monsters, and even plants. So now when you see her in your game, make sure you're watching out for her because she could literally be anywhere. She now no longer breaks her disguise when she takes damage, and only if she decides to come out herself or if she gets CC'd. Aside from those super fun changes to her passive, she's getting tweaks to her numbers throughout her kit too. Some more damage on her Q, a bit of a nerf to her E and ultimate, but she can also now change the location of her W's clone now. Lots to wrap your head around, but just be prepared to play against a lot more Neekos, for once, as she really has never really been the most popular champion. Taliyah is getting a quality of life change this patch that could actually be much bigger than people realise when it comes to stringing together creative combos. Taliyah's ultimate cast lockout now only happens when she takes damage, so when dealing damage she can string her ultimate in there to get even more spicy with it. This is going to be really interesting to see those ultimate knockbacks into the pebbles and could allow her to stun entire teams whilst adding more mobility in fights as well. Taliyah is already much better than people realise, so let's see if she gets a bit more popular this week. Swain's buffs have come out of nowhere, and for a champion already pretty underrated, this could send him over the edge. His Q's base damage is being buffed plus its AP ratio and the bonus damage per bolt too. He is by no means in a bad spot despite not being that popular, but get ready to realise how strong he can actually be. He's got a lot to offer in his kit, and his ultimate with a few durable items makes him somewhat immortal in the right fights. So give him a go this patch and let us know how you get on. Over to those AD carries now then, and in the S tier we have Jinx, Xayah, Twitch, Ashe, Jhin, Karthus, Seraphine and Kog'Maw. Jinx's nerfs are definitely overdue as she's been having the time of her life over the last few months. Riot are nerfing her AD growth, which is a fairly minor nerf considering how well she's been performing, but sometimes even those smallest nerfs can make the biggest difference. Jinx's late game splash damage, range and resets just make her so hard to beat. So let's see how much impact these nerfs make. Mages and off-meta bot lane picks are kinda going crazy at the moment with Karthus, Seraphine and even Veigar all performing really well here. AD carries started the season off very strong with the item buffs, but after quite a few patches and changes since then, it's actually quite reliable to just go for a mage, scale up and do your thing. Karthus specifically has been winning a crazy amount of games and gaining much more popularity too. Maybe it's the Freedom Fighter 28 effect, or maybe people are just realising it's just OP. Vayne is slowly but steadily creeping her way back through the tiers as well at the moment, with people getting creative with her build and playstyle options. You've got the classic shield bow or Kraken into Gwynsu's Blade of the Ruin King, you've got Essence Reaver crit Sheen Q spam, or you've even got full lethality. And tons of players are just playing her in loads of different ways. With tanks being so heavily back in the meta now, Vayne will always be a much better pick with her ability to tear through them. So if you are a Vayne enjoyer, it could be time to revisit her again. Finally, let's have a look at support, and in the S tier we have Senna, Rakan, Milio, Janna, Thresh, Blitzcrank, Pyke and Sona. No changes in the patch notes to any supports this week. Yuumi moves up to the A tier though after proving that she's still got it in recent weeks. She just offers so much for such little risk, and if you partnered up with the right AD carry who can abuse it, like Zeri, she instantly becomes so much more viable. Those carry junglers like Hecarim and Kayle are also loving Yuumi's revival, as the partnership can be devastating to say the least. Yuumi offers a boatload of utility throughout games. She's hard to shut down because, well, you can't actually hit her until her friends die, and she's one of those champions that just makes fed teammates unkillable. Milio is another enchanter who's just been consistently brilliant since his release last month. He brings so much to the table with his shields, heals, buffs and boosts, as well as everything else too. That extra range from his W makes him a terror in certain matchups. His passive burn effect is brutal when partnered with some AD carries. And the fact he's got a team-wide cleanse and heal in his ultimate means he can turn around fights in the blink of an eye. Milio is just such a great choice to play in the support role right now, with so many different lanes and picks and drafts you can play with. So give him a go if you haven't already. The hooking supports are still winning tons of games this season too, with Thresh, Blitzcrank and Pyke being incredibly popular and consistent enough to be a part of the S tier. You've got plenty of choice here, but all of them are working well in their various ways. Thresh has his utility and disengage, Blitzcrank has his pick potential throughout games, and Pyke has the damage, mobility and resets. Don't forget about Nautilus either, though he may not be quite as reliable as these three in the S tier, but that hitbox on his Q is still busted all these years later. If you enjoy aggressive supports, you can't go wrong with this lot. That's going to bring us to the end of our patch 13.9 tier list video. We're looking forward to trying out some of these changes, and apparently 13.10 is going to be a big one. So don't forget to check back next week for our rundown. Before you go, feel free to check out our website at mobalytics.gg and download our desktop app to get tons of educational content, stats, builds, and so much more straight into your client. Thanks as always for watching, guys, and we'll see you next time. Take care.